What's up guys, and today I'm be doing an operator analysis on Ashe. So starting off with her primary, she has the choices between the G36C or the R4C. So for Ashe's G36C, it's actually a really well balanced gun. It has good firepower, good rate of fire, and a really good magazine with 30 rounds. And my favorite thing about the gun is that the recoil is really easy to manage. So now moving on to the R4C, this gun is basically an upgraded version of the G36. The only difference is that the recoil is really strong. So the biggest downside to the R4 is that the recoil kind of kicks like crazy, and this could really affect you at a gunfight, especially at a far away distance. For me personally, I always pick the G36C because it's a lot easier to manage. Siege, it's all about getting headshots, and having a stable gun really can help with that, so that's why I picked the G36. The R4 is a really good gun. The only thing is you have to have really good recoil management. But if you're like me, pick the G36. It could get you a lot of headshots, and it's a really good gun overall. Now for Ashe's sidearms, she has the choices between the 5.7 USG or the M45 pistol. And I highly recommend picking the USG, mainly because it has a 20 round magazine, which is a lot for a pistol, and on top of that it has pretty decent damage. Now for Ashe's gadgets, you have the choices between a breaching charge or smoke grenades. And when it comes to picking these two, it really depends on your team's plan when you're attacking. And for me, I always pick breaching rounds because it helps fulfill Ashe's role in the team, which I'll talk about later in the video. But if your team does have a lot of breaching charges, then you should probably go with smoke grenades, especially if you play bomb or hostage. So Ashe's special ability is her breaching rounds. Essentially what this is a grenade launcher that shoots an explosive round at an object and detonates on impact. Ashe gets 2 per round. These breaching rounds could actually be shot at a far distance. And that's really the best thing about the breaching rounds, and if you ever place a breach charge on a wall or a castle door, you always get that off chance of getting shot at by a roamer or through your feet. Also, one thing you could actually do is shoot a ceiling to expose the floor below your enemy. Not a lot of attackers could actually breach ceilings. The only one besides Ashe would be Buck. And this could be really crucial to your team, especially if you're trying to enter a room. So what you're basically doing here is denying campers their spots inside and outside the objective. Another thing the Ashe charge could do pretty well is to start barbed wire around the area. Final things to mention about the Ashe charge. One being that Bandit's battery charges could actually destroy your Ashe charge if you make contact with it. The second thing I'm going to mention is that you could actually shoot the Ashe charge through drone holes. So in some situations you're able to take out Mew jammers or Bandit charges through the drone holes. Finally, the last thing I'm going to mention is that Jaeger's ADSs could actually take out Ashe's charges if they're in range. So just be careful with your shots if there's a Jaeger on the opposite team. So now I'm going to be talking about the best way to utilize Ashe and what's her role in the team. The most notable and best attribute about Ashe is that she's actually really fast. And the best way I found to use Ashe in an optimal level is to use her in a very fast and aggressive way. Ashe isn't the best operator to hold down angles. Instead, what you need to be doing with her is constantly moving and changing positions. You have to remember, since Ashe is so fast, she has really low armor, so she can only take a few shots to the body. Ashe can be in the front lines if you're attacking an objective, but the better way to use her really is to provide flanks from either the hatch or the backside. If the objective does have a breakable floor, you could use an Ashe charge to shoot it. That way you could deny any campers there. Also, you could provide fire from below. Ashe is actually pretty good for handling roamers, mainly because she has that speed to catch them off guard, and on top of that, her guns are really good. One thing that I do a lot when I play Ashe is constantly push my enemy. And I do this mainly because when I play her, I try to use her speed to catch my enemies off guard. This doesn't mean you run at your enemies like an idiot. Just try moving from cover to cover, and at one point you're going to be pretty close to your enemy, and at that point winning a gunfight with Ashe's gun is pretty easy. Since Ashe is really fast, always try to be the one peeking people, not the one getting peeked. Since Ashe is really fast and the game has the peeker's advantage, being the one always peeking with Ashe always guarantees you a headshot if you aim in the right direction. So now I'm going to be going over some mistakes I see people make with Ashe. So the first mistake on the list would have to be playing really slow with Ashe and being really passive. If you play Ashe, you really have to be fast and aggressive with her. Crouching towards the objective and droning all the time is really inefficient with her, especially since you got that speed and you're not really utilizing it. Also, if you're engaging in a gunfight, it is best to always change positions or provide flanks, because since Ashe is a one-armored operator, a couple shots to the body could easily kill you. Also, if you're trying to hold an angle with her, it's best to strafe left and right because she's really fast, and if you're constantly doing that, it's really hard to shoot the head. Also, if you drone an enemy out and he's right around the corner where you're at, it's best to run in the room and shoot. And the reason I say this is because if you run right through a door past an enemy, they're not going to have enough time to react, and you're most likely going to get the drop on them. The second mistake I see people make with Ashe is using her breaching rounds when they don't need to. An example of this would be if there's a window that has a castle door on it, you don't have to use a breaching charge for it. Since the windows are on the outside of the building, it's pretty safe to place a breaching charge on it, or call Sledge over to bust it open. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal wasting 2 breaching rounds from Ashe, but sometimes it could really help you out in a round, especially if there's like barbed wire on the floor. If the enemy team has a castled wall on the objective doors, I suggest always using a breaching round for those, mainly because sometimes if you try to place a breaching round on it, the enemy might try to shoot your feet. And sometimes having those breaching rounds could really make a difference in a round, especially if they have a breakable floor that you can shoot your breaching rounds through to deny those campers. Finally, the last mistake I see people make with Ashe is being overly aggressive. An example of this would be an Ashe player that shoots an Ashe charge at a door, then that player runs right through it trying to rush the objective and he gets shot from a defender holding an angle. And don't get me wrong, I think it's good to play really aggressive with Ashe, but don't play stupid aggressive. Try to figure out your enemy's general location, and on top of that, always check your corners. So now I'm going to be rating Ashe on 3 things, which is loadout, gadget, and team efficiency. For Ashe's loadout, I'm going to have to give her a 10 out of 10. Both of Ashe's assault rifles, which is the G36C and the R4C, are great guns. Both the G36C and the R4 are really hard hitting guns, especially the R4 since it has that really high power and high rate of fire. And with those 2 combinations with the R4, sometimes you don't even have to aim for the head. Now for Ashe's pistols, I really love her USG. Having that 20 round magazine could really help me out in some situations. And I really like the fact that they gave Ashe breaching charges. I know a lot of people think it's stupid because she has those breaching rounds, but I think the opposite. If you have more breaching charges to add to your breaching rounds, it can really help you out by destroying walls, destroying ceilings, and this way you leave less areas for campers and roamers. And all this is why Ashe gets a 10 out of 10 for her loadout. Now for Ashe's gadget, she gets a 7 out of 10. Ashe's gadget can be really handy at times, especially if you're trying to get walls that are kind of dangerous to get to. But in general, I don't really think her gadget is all that great, especially if the enemy team has a Jaeger. That completely cancels out her special ability. And on top of that, she only gets 2 breaching rounds, which I feel is kind of dumb, because her breaching rounds are not really a game changer, and on top of that, they really don't cause a lot of harm to the defending team. And to me, 2 breaching rounds is very little for how much it actually does, so I feel that Ashe should definitely get at least 1 more breaching round. And these are all the main reasons why Ashe gets a 7 out of 10 for her gadget. Now for Ashe's team efficiency, she's going to get an 8 out of 10. Ashe does provide a good assault operator for the team. Since Ashe is really fast and has 2 great weapons, she could easily provide that well-needed flank for your team. And on top of that, Ashe is a really good breacher. She's provided with 2 breaching rounds, and on top of that, she has 3 breaching charges. So she could easily make alternative pathways to kill your enemies, and that could really help out the team at times. And the one thing I think she's really good at is handling any roamers that are around the map. She has the weapon power to stop any low armored operators from roaming, and she has the speed to stop any heavy armored operators from roaming. And I know she's really not important to the team like a Thatcher or a Thermite, but she is a great breacher and assault operator, and if she dies, it's not a huge loss to the team. And this is why overall, she gets an 8 out of 10 for her team efficiency. Adding all 3 scores up make Ashe's overall score a 8 out of 10. Well, that'll be the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you want to see more operator videos like this, then check out my channel. And if you enjoyed watching the video, hit that like button. And once again, guys, thanks for watching.